Good afternoon, everyone. It is time for another episode of Get to Know Her. I am your host, Monica Graves. I'm so excited about today. We have Amanda Nichol-Grant with us, who is going to be helping us with the big topic of feeling overwhelmed. She is a specialty. She's a specialty. She is special. She's amazing. Her specialty is really helping moms to cope with overwhelm. I am not a mom, but I can't even imagine the stress right now during this pandemic of what moms are dealing with having kids at home. And it's a lot. So I'm really, really excited to have her here. I'm going to formally introduce her in just a moment. But before I get started, how is your week going? It is cold. I'm surprised how cold it is. I thought we were heading for some warm weather last week, but last week was exciting. It was International Women's Week. And you know what? The best thing about doing this show is I get to celebrate amazing women with you every week. And that's how it should be. We should be celebrating ourselves every single day. And today I'm actually cozied up in a Brenda Badome long sweater that I got from her last fall. Yeah, it's so nice and so cozy, and it's got pockets, you guys. So if your hands are cold, if you're like me and you're working and your fingers get cold, it's great. You can just sit here and put your hands in your pocket. And then of course I have one of her beautiful satin blouses on, and it pairs so nicely. I thought I'd wear jeans today, a little more casual, but Brenda is awesome. And don't forget, she is offering us, all of us here at Get to Know Her, 21% off of your order when you shop brendabadome.com. So make sure you take advantage of that. Use the coupon code Get to Know Her, and you'll get the 21% off. Now, it's time to introduce our guest. I've got my glasses on here, and I'm going to read right from this piece of paper. So Amanda is the founder of Thriving Mamas Coaching. She helps to support moms through stress and overwhelm so they can feel better about themselves and lead more fulfilling lives. Making peace with our stress so we can move beyond it, and being compassionate with ourselves isn't always easy. I hear ya, but it's worth it. Amanda offers support to moms through one-on-one coaching and her free Facebook group, Mamas Outshining Overwhelm. It's a great group, by the way. I joined it, and I'm not a mom, and I love it. She is launching a free Confess Your Stress mini workshop at the end of the month, and will be opening a new program in April. Amanda is mom to a beautiful, very energetic 4-year-old. She's married, and she is a full-time special education teacher. Her goal is to help moms know that they're not alone, and to make the journey through stress a little bit easier. And you know what? With all of those things, Amanda can relate to all the juggling that happens in life. So let's bring her on. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Welcome. It's so nice to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. This is really great. I love all the things you're doing for moms. You're amazing. Oh, wow. With everything on your plate, and you're still thinking of others.
That's kind of always been my way. It's easier to think about others than yourselves sometimes.
Yeah, that's so true. So Amanda, we all are dying to know what little Amanda wanted to be when she grew up.
I wanted to be a flight attendant. I think I did a school project in like grade 6 about being a flight attendant, and I thought it would be so cool to just like travel around the world and explore. And then somebody told me that that's not really what that would look like. It would just be a lot of like, hotels and plane rides. And I decided against it.
Lots of jet lag.
Yes.
So you decided against that. And and so did you go from there to being interested in teaching, or what were sort of your influences growing up?
I think I loved learning. I loved school. So I liked science, I liked drama, I liked English. So it was actually really hard to kind of pick something.
Mm-hmm.
I think my mom always knew I was going to be a teacher. Part of the reason I went to Teachers College was because I wanted to do some traveling as well. And so I went to Teachers College in Australia. And that was pretty amazing. And it was like, the more I learned about it, the more I fell in love with teaching. I've been in special education most of my career. I spent a lot of years teaching a gifted class. And then the last few years, I've been focusing on students who have visual impairments. And I should also say, if there's anyone wondering how I'm doing this interview at 1:00 when I'm a teacher, I am working from home, and this is my lunch break that I'm taking.
Oh. Oh, that's so nice. Wow, we timed that well with the lunch break.
Yes.
That's great. Well, I hope you get to eat at some point.
Totally, yeah.
That's great. So Australia, now I want to go back a little further. Your parents, they were very, very supportive, I take it, of all of your hopes and dreams. And was there one parent over the other who you were sort of looked to as a mentor, or who was encouraging you? What was happening in your childhood? Were there any big influences there?
That's a good question. I always, like, when I was a teenager, I was thinking about this. I always wanted to be very sophisticated. I don't really know where that came from. It was like, I thought it was very cool to read old classic books, and I would watch like Casablanca and Breakfast at Tiffany's, and I just thought I was so cool. And I don't know why.
You are so cool. That my cool radar just went way up with you.
But I would never choose to do that now. But when I was 17, I thought that was awesome. Yeah, I think both my parents were very accepting of who I was. And I was always, had my hands in a bunch of things, the school play and the volleyball team. And we lived in the country, and my high school was in the city. And, they shuttled me around. And yeah, they were both always really great, as was my younger brother.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. Yeah, it's nice when you get that support from your family, and they're encouraging you and believing in you. And so how did Australia come about? Like, was that your idea or your parents, or?
No, it was not my parents. No, I'd say that more came from me. Yeah. So I did traveling on the way there and on the way back through Europe, and then traveled for about a month just around the Australia with a friend from Teachers College, kind of rented a camper van and toured around the country, which you just never get that time back, right? Like, you would never, if my husband and I have talked about this, so I'm not like springing this on him here. Like, if our son wanted to do something like that, before he jumped into a career, we'd totally be open to that. So do some exploring.
That's great. That's something we have in common. My parents, they were actually, when I said, I don't know what I want to do, a little bit different, they said, well, if you don't know what you want to do, you're going to go and travel. And so I did I did the backpacking through Europe, and my parents, actually, they did it. My mom did it once with my dad's sister, and then again with my dad. And so you learn so much, don't you, with that type of travel. Now, so when you did Europe, were you doing the backpack thing, staying in youth hostels? And
some youth hostels, some just like cheap hotels, those apps that you can book a room 2 hours from now, what's cheap and available, kind of.
Love it. What countries did you visit?
France, Greece, and Italy.
Oh, nice. Greece, I remember I did not want to leave. Like, I think I'd still be there. It was so beautiful.
It was. I think Greece was the scariest country, though, because growing up in Ontario, right? Like, we learned French, right? So the Italian doesn't sound so different. But then when you go to Greece and you see the Greek signs, you're like, I really have no idea. I'm just.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah. Did you go to the Pink Palace in Greece?
No.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay. So it's in Corfu.
Okay.
And it's like a backpacker's haven. So what they do, when I was there, I was 21. It was 1990 or 20. Yeah, it was 1990 when I was there. So they have a bus. It's a school bus, and they pick up the backpackers at 7:00 in the morning because the boat would have just arrived from Brindisi because we came over from Italy, right? And so everybody gets on the boat and is offered a shot of pink ouzo at 7 a.m. So then you have that. And as you're going up this hill to Corfu, it's crazy, right? It's like not in a million years would I drive in a school bus up that hill today, but and then you get there and it's all Australians and Americans and it's just like a backpacker's haven kind of thing, but so much fun. And yeah, the nightclub and, just crashing in your room. And yeah, I love it. Such good times. Yeah, that's great. So Australia, Europe, you did all your traveling and then you came back to Ontario. Did you meet your husband back here or had you met him on your travels?
No, back here. We didn't meet until we've been married for 8 years. So I was
nice.
Well into my teaching career here in Ontario by the time we met.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Great. And then you had your beautiful son only 4 years ago.
Yes.
Good. So tell me a little bit about now you're done school and you're doing your teaching. Was it always special ed or had you done other things before that and then
I
decided to specialize?
1 year in a grade 3 class in Waterloo. Okay. And then from there, I went into special education.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. So what was the spark that made you decide, okay, I've got to help moms out?
It's a hard time. And I think that it's a hard time for everyone, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think it was sort of a process of learning and growing. Things where I was always a little anxious and then, was able to get pregnant and that was awesome. Pregnancy was good. And then our son was born, he had some trouble breathing. He was born, I had to be induced because he was little and he was in the NICU for a little bit and it just, he was little. So then people are talking about, he needs to gain weight and his development and being a new mom is stressful enough. And then when you take like an anxious, disposition and then all those extra concerns and I put a lot of pressure on myself. I sort of thought that I needed to be everything to him every second of the day. And I was afraid of making mistakes and not giving him something that he needed. So I was off with him for 2 years, which was really amazing and lucky. But part of the reason we made the choice about the second year was that he was diagnosed with an immune system condition where if he had a fever, they were afraid his body wouldn't be able to fight off a bacterial infection. So we'd have to take him to McMaster and he would be admitted and get IV. And it was awful, right? I was checking his temperature all the time. I was afraid I was going to miss something and he was going to be sick. And I wasn't sleeping enough, right? I mean, he was up all hours of the night wanting me and it just it came to a head. I remember a couple of times when I saw a counselor a few times just to sort of process and help. And one time she looked at me and she said, Amanda, if you treated your son the way you treat yourself, I would have him taken away from you. And it was the most amazing thing she could have said to me, right? It was full of love. It was full of wisdom. And I keep coming back to that, right? It's like, no, I wouldn't treat a stranger the way I'm treating myself, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was probably the entry into the self-compassion piece. And
Amanda, what were sort of, and you don't have to go there all the way if you don't want to, but what were sort of some of the things you were doing to yourself, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah.
And I'm putting my hand up as a person who does this to herself. So please,
for sure. And I've been it's kind of funny because I consider myself pretty introverted, but the more I start talking about this, the more I realize that the more open and honest we can be, the more other people feel heard and understood and not alone. And so I'm kind of willing to go there, I guess. It was a constant, I wrote a blog post that will be published in June, and I called it Outsourcing My Parenting. So I had all these professionals coming into my home trying to help me help my baby, make sure he was okay. And it just became this constant questioning, right? So-and-so must know better than me, right? So that's sort of like pushing down of your instincts and your intuition in the name of authority or what we're supposed to do. And there were instances where I didn't do that. Like one person was trying to get me to do this sleep thing. And I was like, no, sorry, it's not going to happen. Right. Mm-hmm. But those moments were few and far between. My husband would try to convince me to take a break, but I just couldn't turn off. Right. It was just that like, I need to be here now. I couldn't sort of handle the discomfort of my baby being upset when I left. We had some trouble. Like it took us a little while to get pregnant. And I think there was always that extra pressure of I should be there and be present and appreciative 24/7 because I wanted this so bad. And so that's how I prove that I really wanted this. And of course I do. And of course he's the light of our lives and he's amazing and it wouldn't change anything for the world. But that just constant pressure, always thought I needed to be.
Was it, Amanda, was it like a guilt feeling almost? Like you felt, yeah. Like you felt like you had to prove that you deserved this or that, or, I don't know. Like it sounds like you're really, that's such a real struggle, that guilt stuff.
Yeah. And I think lots of I think maybe, in society it happens a lot. I definitely see it a lot in moms. I spend a lot of time in mom groups online and you see it a lot. You see that moms are afraid to sort of complain. It comes across as, I'm trying to think how to explain it. It's like if someone says, I'm really tired, my baby's not sleeping through the night, then there's either sort of this toxic positivity of like, oh, this too shall pass. You really have to like appreciate it while they're young. There's just that guilt, right? So as soon as there's any complaining, then the reaction is, but you love your kids, right? So it's like you can't have both. You can't complain about being tired or about being stressed if you also love your kids and are a good mom, which is obviously total garbage. But that seems to be the sense.
Wow, that amazes me. Like, and I know this goes on because I have friends with kids and we've, their kids are older now, but I remember when the kids were young and the pressure they had on them. And it just blows my mind that anyone even goes there, because it's so much work. I mean, I complain I'm tired. I have a dog and a husband. I'm tired because of the time change. Poor me, but I cannot imagine what you're going through. You have a 4-year-old. He now has to adjust. You were sharing earlier with me when we were getting ready today that now you've got to wake him up in the morning because you need him up and he's got to get going. And, all of these things, like there's always somebody else there who needs you. And it's interrupting your sleep. It's interrupting time for yourself. It's self-care, time with friends, alone time with husband, like all of those things. Of course, it's the love and joy of your life, but it's also a massive intrusion into what, Yeah, for sure. I mean, wow. And the community you've built, you are very, very, I love your whole approach. You're, as a business person, you are not in any way about the sale. You know what I mean? Like, you are so much about the story and about the sharing the stories and genuinely offering your support, which I think is so wonderful and so refreshing, because that's what people need. They need to feel like they can just be like, oh, I can relax with this person and they're not going to judge me.
Yeah, that's I love that you said that. Thank you. That means a lot. That's all totally my goal. I remember someone saying a little while ago, if you're doing something and you know that you would keep doing it for free, like if you never made any money from it, you still keep doing it, then you're doing the right thing. And I was like, okay, check. Yep, I'm good.
Yeah. You know who said something similar to that was Alicia Keys. She said, before I take on any project, I ask myself, if I didn't get a penny for this, would I do it? And if the answer is no, I don't do it.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's so good, because then you're always true to yourself. And that's a big that's a big piece of self-care, not giving your power away, right?
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of our stress comes from how we view other people's expectations of us, right? Or what we internalize, what we expect of ourselves, without really stopping to figure out if this is really what we want, really who we are, really where we want to go, really where we want to spend our time and energy. And that's always one of the first steps to deal with it, is just to sort of step back and look at that list and say, wait a second, I'm not sure how these 5 things got on the list because I don't really care about them.
Yeah, it's funny. I'd be curious to know, Amanda, what your viewpoint is on managing other people's expectations. Because there's one point of thought that's like, people will say, stop worrying about what other people think. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. Okay, fine. But then there's this other part where, family members, people who are close to us, can give us unsolicited advice, can tell us like, well, if I were you, I would do it this way, because it's a little more free, right? People are going to just say what's on their mind. Yeah. But those comments can also deeply hurt us, and it can make us second guess who we are as a human. And, and before you know it, you can find yourself kind of living the life of somebody else, like maybe it's a mom or a dad or a brother or a sister. You're living your life to accommodate them and losing focus on what it is you need out of life, right? So, and also, this is the stuff that now, I'm in my early 50s, and this is the stuff I'm learning now. I remember being in my 30s. And if you had thrown a kid into that mix of me trying to please everybody and meet everyone's expectations, I would have been a full-time member of your group. I would have been on the board. Like, I can't imagine that. It's, your 30s are that time where you're accumulating all of these things that you want, right? The husband, the house, the children. You're making your life. And how do you help women with that? I can imagine that must be hard. The expectations of other people.
Yeah. And I think the hardest part is actually that they don't know what it is sometimes, right? Like, you get someone who feels stuck, who feels, I guess stuck is probably the main word. They feel like something's not right? They're unhappy, but they should be happy because they have all those things that you were just talking about, right? I did all the things I was supposed to do and I'm still not happy. What's wrong with me? And I think that Mel Robbins refers to it as the ladder life, sort of always the next rung on the ladder, and how society encourages that, right? So it's like you have, you get engaged. It's not even really congratulations. It's when's the wedding, right? And then when's the baby? And when's the, the second baby coming? When's the promotion coming? When, up and up and up. And then you always feel like you're putting off your happiness, right? I'll be happy when, or I'll make time for myself when. So I think it's a lot of trying to get women to understand that it's a misalignment, right? So it's kind of step way back. What are your values? Who do you want to be? And then everything else has to line up from there, as opposed to I have all these things, right? There's sort of these 50 things in my life that need my attention, and I'm going to put my attention there, but then it doesn't feel good because it somehow doesn't match, right? My like innermost being.
Right.
Go the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice. And Amanda, what's happened in your life that you are so wise about these things? Because you really are. I'm telling you, I mean, you know, when I think of myself back in my 30s, even early 40s, I didn't have that perspective.
Oh.
You know, and I feel like now, I mean, there's a joke that they call it your FU 50s, right? but it's kind of true, because I think what happens now at this stage, it's like it's midlife, and it's like, okay, what are we doing for the rest of it? I don't mean to sound morbid, but it could be 10 years, it could be 20, it could be 30, maybe it's going to be 40, but it's not going to be young and fun forever. And so for me, I regress back to my teens, and I regress back to the times in my life where I was full of this joy, and I hang on to that because that's who I want to be in the world. And all the other stuff of, well, you did this, but what are you going to do next? Like, the ladder is knocked over now. I don't care. It's like, there's no more linear stuff. It's just whatever's around and feels good, I'll take it. Yeah. So, but that took until I, was 49, 50 years old, like that. So for you, I feel like you've got a really good handle on this already. You know that whole, even what you just said, it's time to step back and look at what are your values, and then there's a bravery piece that comes along with that, where it's like, okay, so now I know what I want, but how do I do that when everybody else is focused on the ladder? They kind of leave you alone after 50. They know you're not, she's probably not going to have a kid now. We can stop asking her that. It's that kind of stuff. So what's given you that? Has it been the struggle that you went through?
Yeah. And I think, so in 2012, I was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease. So I was in the hospital for about 11 days. No one knew what was wrong. My kidneys were starting to shut down. I had some weird things going on with my heart. My, blood levels were all over the place. And so my adrenal glands don't work. I have something called Addison's disease, and I'll be medicated for the rest of my life to keep me alive. But other than that, it's pretty manageable. But during that period of time, I had to step back. I was, it was a super busy sort of season of teaching. I was in the classroom, I had all this paperwork to do, and I'm feeling like garbage, admitted to the hospital on the phone, like, how do I get this done? And blah, blah, blah. And people saying like, Amanda, look around, right? Like what you doing, right? Like, you don't have any control over this. And so it was like, they were right. I didn't. And my job was to rest and get better. I was on a leave from work, and I had to build up my stamina to walk around the block, right? Like, let alone go back to that sort of busy life of what am I supposed to do and what more can I add to my plate? And so I think that was honestly probably the beginning of that perspective taking of, when everything, it's a little bit like what COVID has done for us in a sense. I feel like it stripped everything away. And then you actually have this opportunity to decide what you want to put back in. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably where that started for me. And then obviously I wasn't fixed, right? Like, I continued, we're never fixed. But it's, and then the continued struggles. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And
gosh,
I read a lot.
And sorry, say that again.
I read a lot.
Good. Yeah. Reading is great. Yeah. Wow. Amanda, that's quite something. How long did all of that sort of take, going through being diagnosed with Addison's disease and then did you take a full year of rest, or how long were you?
No, I'm trying to think. So actually, even then, I was diagnosed in October. We got engaged that Christmas. So then I was, feeling better by then, because I was still at home. Started to plan our wedding. So, I guess there wasn't a full year of rest. But
yeah. Wow. But you must have slowed down. Like you must have.
Oh yeah.
Slowed down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did it teach you to ask for help? Another problem as women, we never ask for help, do we? Not enough. My mom keeps saying to me, for God's sakes, everything you do, ask yourself, can this be delegated? Stop doing it all yourself.
It's something that's a big one for me that I still am working on, for sure, I would say.
Yeah. That's great. So tell us, I wrote down a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. You've got a free mini workshop coming up called Confess Your Stress. I love the name of it. That's so great. So what are your plans with this workshop? What do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah. So lots of Facebook groups do this where they call it a challenge. So I have decided that stressed out moms don't need another challenge in their lives. So I'm not going to use, that's why I'm calling it a free mini workshop. So the idea there is to look at, do part of that stepping back that we just talked about, and look at sort of what are those stressors? What can you take off your plate because you didn't really want it there to begin with? And sort of doing some work around what we can really control in our lives and what we can't. Because a lot of the times our stress comes from what I expect, what I think other people should be doing in response to, right? It's just all of this sort of ruminating and thinking about how everything should go or what other people think I should do. And so to sort of step back and look at, I can't control other people. I can't even control how I think and feel all the time, but I can control how I react to it. I can control, if I pay attention to positive things versus negative things. So yeah, that's sort of the main focus of that workshop. And I looked at the calendar and realized where Easter was. So I think I might actually be pushing it, the workshop, into the beginning of April after Easter. I'll have to see.
Okay. That's good. So with this, it's such a great topic because the stress level right now for a lot of moms has got to be through the roof with working from home, kids at home, especially, young kids where there maybe isn't, a span of a couple hours in the day where they're sitting with their teacher in front of the laptop or whatever. So how is all of this being managed? Like, how are moms doing it? Because how are you doing it, Amanda? That's a big expectation also, like from the employer, that you're going to continue to do your work and also be at home with your child. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine, pre-COVID, the bring your kid to work day. Did anybody do any work that day? No. So how what are those conversations like with your moms who are trying to juggle this?
They're stressed and they're exhausted. They're giving up their sleep. They're giving up their alone time, and their decompression time is really what's happening. And then they don't understand why they're so upset at something very small. And it's just that load, that stress level builds and builds and builds until it's going to come out somehow, right? So, I talk a lot about, because lots of women will sort of laugh, especially right now, laugh in the face of self-care, right? I don't have time to go do this. I don't have time to. And so it sometimes comes down to sort of, what can you do throughout the day in little bits, right? Like, you can eat some carrots. You can have some water instead of the fourth cup of coffee, which I need to remember that. Do what I say, not what I do. No,
nothing wrong with that.
So those little bits, or even just to sort of pause and take a few breaths, maybe put your hand on your heart and center yourself before reacting to something. making sure you go to bed, right? Like, does it really, and again, if my husband's watching this right now, he's laughing, right? Because he's always telling me I need to go to bed earlier. But just, I think that when you sense it in yourself, because when you start to pay attention, you can feel it building, right? Like you can feel the tension, or you can feel sort of emotions bubbling up sooner or stronger than maybe feels comfortable. If you have little kids around, turn some music on really loud and like dance and sing and like jump around with them. And it literally like you release that energy, right? And then it doesn't kind of blow up in your face or at someone you love when you don't mean it to. Yeah. But yeah, they're stressed and yeah.
I can imagine. It's got to be tough. And the Zoom calls and
the screen time piece is
Yeah. Now, the bonus to all of this, I don't know if you feel this way, but we're finally women. I mean, it's all out there in the open now. People are seeing this is what we're dealing with. Like, it's not a joke. It's not something that like the woman shows up to work and she's all done and she's got her family at home. And now, you know, people in workplaces get to see what it's like.
Yeah.
Right. And so that I find that very inspiring and also empowering, that it's not that women ever hid their kids, but I don't think for the most part they went to work and complained about the kids and the lack of sleep, and because they want to be like put together. I got to show a brave face. I got to do my work. That's another stress. But now they don't even, you know, don't have to say it. It's there. You know, kids are, yeah. Wow. It's such a stressful but exciting time, eh, Amanda?
Yeah. And even this whole, I think it's empowering that we're having this conversation, right? Like, I think lots of women are more having this kind of conversation. And I think those stresses were there before, but then there is lots of focus on mental health right now because of the impacts of COVID. And I think women are starting to sort of find that voice and hopefully start to be a bit more open and comfortable to talk about it.
Yeah. I think it's great. Oh, Amanda, thank you for everything you do. You're amazing. And I said to the folks, like, I don't have children, but I joined your group and I love it. I mean, it's really, really gentle and kind, and it's just a place to fall into, you know, for any woman, I think, who's feeling overwhelmed. And it's interesting because I find even with me, with my jewelry business, you kind of, what happens is you grow along with your customers. So, you know, when I started, my customers were in their 20s and 30s, and now they're in their 40s and 50s. And I'm excited for you because you have so much insight and so much wisdom on this that I think your people will, you know, you'll travel along with them on this journey through all phases of life. And it's going to be exciting for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
For sure. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. I know you're on your lunch break. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now because I really want to host you for an Instagram after party.
Okay.
And I'm going to just put you back in the little virtual green room. But Amanda, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. And maybe for the Instagram after party, let's see, what do you want to talk about? Can be anything. Maybe more about the trip through Europe. I want to know the crazy things you did over there. Get your diary out. Okay. All right. We'll see you in a minute. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for hopping on today. Wow. And Sarah, thank you. It was an inspiring conversation. Amazing. You know, I was thinking, wow, Amanda has so much wisdom when it comes to kids and family and moms. And, you know, I don't have a lot of experience in that area, but you know what? We can learn so much from each other. It doesn't matter. We don't all have to be the same or have experienced the same things, or even be the same age. It's great. We all have something to relate to. So Thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to leave the contact information for Amanda to join her group here in the comments. And I'll also leave the information for Brenda Badome, because you definitely want to shop brendabadome.com and get 21% off of your order when you use the coupon code Get to Know Her. Thank you guys so much for being here today, and keep on showing the world your sparkle. See you next week.